Brazil, a country of more than 213 million people, famous for football, carnival, beaches, and the Amazon. But hidden inside this enormous nation is a Muslim story most of the world barely knows. Who are Brazil's Muslims, and how did Islam find a home here? Beyond the postcard image of Brazil, and you'll find mosques, halal restaurants, Muslim families, Brazilian converts, and communities preserving a faith that has a far deeper history here than many people realize. One of the earliest chapters begins not in the Middle East, but in West Africa. Enslaved Africans brought to Brazil included Muslims who carried something incredibly powerful with them: faith, knowledge, and memory. Even after being torn from their homeland, some Muslims continued to pray, fast, teach, and preserve Islamic traditions under unimaginable conditions. Their faith did not simply disappear. Then came 1835. In Salvador, Bahia, Muslim Africans organized one of the most significant slave revolts in Brazilian history, the Malê Revolt, and many of its leaders could read and write Arabic. The revolt was crushed, but its stories survived. The Malê uprising became a powerful reminder that enslaved Muslims in Brazil were not simply victims of history. They were people with faith, education, organization, and resistance. But the story of Islam in Brazil didn't end there. Later, immigrants from Lebanon, Syria, Palestine, and other regions arrived, and new Muslim communities began taking root. And if thou wants seek modern Muslim Brazil, one city stands out: São Paulo. Millions live here, and within this enormous metropolis, Muslim communities have built businesses, restaurants, schools, and mosques. Inside these mosques, Arabic and Portuguese meet. Some worshippers have immigrant roots, others were born Brazilian, and some discovered Islam much later in life. And this creates a fascinating question: can you fully embrace Brazilian culture while living according to Islamic values? For many Brazilian Muslims, the answer is simple: yes. But Brazil is famous for food, and especially meat. So what happens when a Muslim lives in a culture built around churrasco, restaurants, and social meals? The answer is a growing halal food culture. From São Paulo to other major cities, Muslim consumers can find halal meat, Middle Eastern dishes, restaurants, markets, and businesses serving a distinctly Brazilian Muslim community. Then comes Ramadan. In a country where Islam is a minority faith, the rhythm of fasting happens alongside Brazil's ordinary daily life: work, school, traffic, and crowded city streets. And when the sun finally sets, everything changes. Dates are served, water is poured, families gather. For a few precious moments, the noise of the outside world disappears. On Eid, Brazilian mosques become places of celebration. Children dress up, families embrace, food is shared, and Islamic tradition takes on a distinctly Brazilian atmosphere. For some Muslim women, identity is visible the moment they step outside. The hijab can bring questions, curiosity, and sometimes misunderstanding, but also confidence in who they are. And Brazil's younger Muslims are creating something new. They speak Portuguese, study at Brazilian universities, build careers, use social media, and still make space for prayer, Ramadan, and faith. Not every Brazilian Muslim comes from a Muslim family. Some discover Islam themselves. Their journeys can begin with a friendship, a question, a book, or simply curiosity. But is it easy? Not always. Finding halal food, maintaining religious routines, explaining Islamic practices, or simply being visibly different can sometimes make everyday life more complicated. Yet, there is another side to the story. Brazil is famous for its warmth, diversity, and multicultural communities, and many Muslims have found ways to build a life where faith and Brazilian identity exist together. That may be the most surprising part. Brazil's Muslims are not trying to become someone else. Many are simply building an identity that is both Brazilian and Muslim. From enslaved West African Muslims who fought to preserve their faith, to immigrant families, to young Brazilians choosing Islam today, this story stretches across generations. So perhaps the real story of Islam in Brazil isn't about numbers. It's about people. People who carried their faith through slavery, migration, change, and generations, and refused to let it disappear. Brazil gave the world carnival, football, and unforgettable landscapes. But behind all of that is another Brazil, a Brazil where Islam has survived, adapted, and continues to grow.